Welcome to the 118th running of the Melbourne to Warrnambool Cycling Classic. Today we have 232 riders who are going to compete over 256 kilometres from here in Werribee into the main street of Warrnambool. For many elite riders in the NRS teams, the Melbourne to Warrnambool Classic is probably about the personal challenge of working to get a teammate on the podium or making a top 10 or place themselves as a stepping stone to bigger things ahead. The Warrnambool is certainly an important proving ground for our young elite riders on the road to higher goals.
Ready for a big day in the saddle. At least the weather's nice, eh?
I thought to myself, I've got 40 years of experience behind me, and yeah, I'm on the start line. And this year we've got had a fantastic team with you riding we've got a few favourites today, so it'd be good to be amongst that for a little while. And also want to honour a good friend of mine that I commentated with the Warnie for the last 3 or 4 years, which is John Holland.
Floris Goossinen is here again. He was the winner of the Melbourne to Warrnambool last year, and of course he backed up the next day and won the Shipwreck Coast Classic. He is here with his Drapac professional cycling team.
There's not a lot of wind, so it's not going to be a battle of the fittest and just one last man standing in the end. I think it's more of a chess game, and we'll see who's going to be the man of the team who end up in front.
We also have the Hugh and Salmon Genesis Wealth Advisory team here, and of course they have the Caterpillar Tour of Tasmania winner Jack Haig on perfect form, and he is going very nicely for the race today.
Me and Robbie will be battling it out today. We battled out in Tas, so it'll be good to see how it goes. It'll be a long day out there.
It'll be an aggressive race as always, but maybe a small group at the finish hopefully.
The weather today is really good. We got blue skies, hardly a breath of wind at the moment. It's a little bit cold, but as soon as that sun gets up, we're going to hit a bit of warm weather, which will be nice. And I think the forecast is for northwesterly winds, so mainly head cross all day, but it'll depend on how strong it is, will determine the race.
We've got 232 starters. We've got the NRS teams. We have B grade, C grade and D grade riders competing in this race today. It's 256 kilometres. They'll be under neutral for the first 9 kilometres. The race will really start to hit its straps around 184 kilometres. It's about 80 kilometres from the finish. They have to go over the climb at Camperdown, and that's where the race will start to open up. It was a very, very big day. Started out in perfect conditions, but very early on into the race, the crosswinds started to take effect. 40 kilometres in, the crosswinds were blowing very strong indeed, and we saw our first breakaway of the day. 19 riders went clear, and in any other bike race, with the strength that was in that break, you would have thought it's all over. We had 5 Drapac professional cycling team members in there. Their top 5 boys driving that breakaway. Jack Anderson from Budget Forklifts, and we also had a group of other riders well and truly up there on the NRS.
The start, Drapac, were really strong all day. Genesis, I was in the first break of the day, which formed after about 40k. We stayed out there until 120 or 130. I was the only budget rider there, so I kind of had to sit on and save my legs. With 6 Drapac and 4 or 5 Genesis, I was pretty outnumbered.
I had a pretty good race. I was away in almost all the moves that went. There was the first move that was mainly Drapac and Genesis riders doing almost a team's time trial together to get away, but we never really got any more than a 1.5 minute gap.
They stayed away for a good deal of the first part of the bike race. They stayed away out to 120 kilometres. During that time, they went through the first sprint of the day. That wasn't really contested, but Luke Davison, the Australian 20 kilometre scratch race champion, he took out that sprint unchallenged.
Even though I want to save my legs, if I want to win this bike race, I have to put it on the line.
I'd love to attack, but that'd be just suicidal of me.
They moved on after the 120 kilometre point of the bike race, and that is where the 2 chasing groups, the main peloton and the chasing group, came together.
The bunches have all come back together apart from one break. They've got probably seconds at a guess. I reckon it could come back together, but this wind's just getting stronger and stronger. It's going to be good.
It all came back together around 120 kilometres. The riders took things easy for a while until they turned back into the crosswinds. That splintered and it came out with two riders, Jason Spencer of Charter Mason and Scott Law of GPM Data 3. Those two riders set up a breakaway of just over 1 minute. They stayed away through Camperdown and they fought out the King of the Mountain trophy. That was taken out by Jason Spencer. Just shortly behind them, we had the National Road Series leader, Jack Haig, lead Will Walker and Darren Lapthorne across the top of the climb. They descended down, it all started to come back together, and once again, we found ourselves with one bunch of around 40 riders on the front of the bike race.
I sort of always knew that Darren Lapthorne and Will Walker were going to have a go up Camperdown climb there, and I made sure that I was on their wheel at that point. And yeah, they hit out up there. I managed to hold onto their wheel, got over the top. We had a small gap, but then the group slowly came back together. We ended up with maybe a group of 20 riders.
The race moved through the 200 kilometre zone and we started to move through the hard part of the bike race. An hour and a half racing to go once these riders moved through 200 kilometres, and that is where we saw what we thought to be the race-winning move. Last year's winner, Floris Goossinen, he went off the front with the National Road Series leader Jack Haig and also Charter Mason's Jason Spencer. Those three riders got up to a lead of 1.5 minutes.
Coming over Camperdown, I felt like really good, and yeah, the group was narrowed down. We had the numbers, so I got a bit overexcited. Made a move with three guys, with Jack Haig and Jason Spencer, and I thought we had it in the pocket.
At the start, I thought it might have been the winning move. I thought I was feeling fairly good, and then it just got to that tipping point and it tipped over big time. And at about the 230k mark, Floris just rolled over the top of me, and I just had no legs left and couldn't hold his wheel and came back to the bunch, and then it was just suffer as much as I can from there.
Of course, that meant doom for Floris Goossinen and Jason Spencer, because that just forced the Hue and Genesis team to go straight to the front and start to chase.
So we've brought the race back together, we reset, we start again, we start the second race, which has 125k to go. And don't worry, plenty of fireworks yet.
Right when the chase was underway, we saw our Teams Pursuit World Champion, Alex Edmondson, puncher right in the middle of the chase. It ruined his opportunity to have fresh legs coming into the finale of this bike race. The riders can't go all day without feeding themselves in this type of bike race, and there was 2 feed zones on the day. The feed zones can be quite treacherous at times, and in the chase group we saw young Brenton Jones of the Hue and Salmon team go down in the second feed zone. It basically ruined the young man's day.
We got up to a bit over a minute's lead, I think, with 25k to go. Unfortunately for Floris, I wasn't much used to him the last 30k. He was super strong, like he won the race last year, and I did a few turns, but I was pretty tired by then, and yeah, we got caught with 15 to go.
We saw the breakaway of Floris Goossinen and Jason Spencer gobbled up. Then we saw a springboard attack. Tom Robinson, Robbie Hucker. We saw Jack Anderson and Alex Ray loop off the front. Hucker not doing too much work, just trying to get the free ride in there. His legs were hurting towards the end of the day. Those 4 riders had a cat and mouse game for the best part of 10 kilometres as they came into Warrnambool.
Yeah, it was just constant little attacks to the finish, and again, I was sort of the strongest in that finishing group of 5, and Robbie Hucker just sat on me and no one would work with me, so I basically kind of had to sit up and wait, and luckily for me, Sam came across.
we saw Sam Horgan and Jack Beckinsale just get on as they came into the last 2 or 3 kilometres. Sam Horgan, his teammate Jack Anderson in the breakaway, we saw them loop off the front together inside the last 3 kilometres. Alexander Ray tried to come out after them. He used everything he possibly could to get across to those 2 riders, but it was to no avail. As the riders came into the finish, we saw the 2 teammates look across at each other and have a conversation. 2 very good friends decided who was going to take line honours here today, and it was the New Zealander Sam Horgan who took line honours for the 2013 Melbourne to Warrnambool Cycling Classic in front of his teammate Jack Anderson.
The whole team were absolutely phenomenal. We came into the race with, you know, like 7 guys all equally capable of winning the race, and we were in every move. And you know, the final result showed just how strong the guys were. It's a team victory. It's not my victory. It's a team victory, and I'm absolutely stoked.
As the bunch was chasing hard, we saw Jacob Kaufman, the 3rd budget forklift rider, to come out of that break, and he came across the line in 3rd place.
Jack said, "Do you want to have it?" And I said, "Yeah." It means a lot to me. I've been focusing on this race for a long time, and he's an incredible teammate. Like, I really owe it to him.
I definitely won't regret it. Sam's one of the nicest guys you'll ever come across, and hopefully he says the same thing about me. But, you know, either of us could have had it on the day, and I mean, I hope, you know, that's a little bit of payback for some of the help he's given me this year, you know, and I'll move on to sort of bigger and better things next year, and I'm thrilled that he got it.
The Melbourne to Warrnambool Cycle Classic is an iconic event in Australian cycling, and it's not always about the superstars of the day. Today, we saw the Australian Team's Pursuit track coach, Tim Decker, a winner himself in 2007. He was riding for a much different reason today. He was riding in the memory of the great commentator, John Holland.
Very happy day, actually. It was very enjoyable. Played a bit of a part in there in mid-race, and felt pretty average very early for about 80k, and was at the back, but just kept chipping away, and so I just enjoyed the moment.
So a trifecta, never been done before in the Melbourne to Warrnambool Cycle Classic. 1st place, Sam Horgan, 2nd place, Jack Anderson, and 3rd place, Jacob Kaufman.